Welcome back. The time is 3 minutes before top of the hour, and you're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidi, Racha on Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism. And as the brutal siege on Gaza deepens, the humanitarian situation has reached catastrophic levels, with no aid allowed through the Rafah crossing since the 2nd of March earlier this year. Rafah. What one might call, the last remaining lifeline into Gaza, continues to remain sealed off, and Egypt's silence grows more and more deafening by the day. In response, a coalition of South African organizations, professionals, and members of the ulama have united to demand action. The Egypt Action Coalition has drafted a memorandum to the Egyptian embassy here in South Africa, calling for the immediate opening of the Rafah crossing to allow much needed life saving aid into Gaza. And with what at this point can be considered a nationwide call for endorsements and protest action, scheduled for Monday, the 28th of April, which is next week. This is, I think, a very, very important moment for South Africans to take a bold and unified stand. And joining us now is Khalid, Vawda, an organizer with Social Intifada, to help us unpack the demands and urgency behind this campaign. Khalid, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you here on Salam Media.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair for having me.
I think we can kickstart the conversation with the basics. For our listener who's probably not in tune, might not necessarily understand and know what the Rafah crossing is, how Egypt is in the mix, and why is it so important to the people of Gaza. How would you explain it to them? How would you just paint the picture of what the Rafah crossing is, and what it means to the people of Palestine, people of Gaza, and how it's important for them to ultimately get aid, to them?
Well, literally, it's the main artery that's going into Gaza, without which Gaza just dies. It's the main single most important route for any goods entering Gaza. And this has been closed since the 2nd of March after Israel once again violated yet another ceasefire agreement. There has been absolutely no aid allowed in since the beginning of March. We're coming on to now about 7 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks and counting. In addition to not allowing aid in, so aid consists of a number of things. There's food, there's medical aid, there's all sorts of life-saving equipment that people need in Gaza. This is not even talking about the reconstruction of Gaza, which is another conversation entirely, which is being done politically, outside of Donald Trump's ludicrous idea and plan for Gaza. But without trucks entering the Rafah crossing into Gaza, absolutely nothing goes in. So we've seen images circulating in recent weeks of trucks piling up at the border, at the Rafah border, and some of them contain perishables, which are literally getting rotten at the border. Now, this is not something new by Israel. This has been an old tactic of Israel, where they do, on the slightest of pretext, excuses, hold goods from going back, and they'll hold an entire truck from entering Gaza because of one item that they allegedly deem suspicious, on a whim or on a fancy, depending on the mood of the guard on the day. Literally, if you see the images that have been circulated, there are so many trucks that have piled up at the border. It's unbelievable. Aid agencies are calling it a catastrophe. The food situation in Gaza is absolutely dire. People are living on, the bare minimum, absolute bare minimum. And we're talking about the poorest of the poor in Gaza, in the refugee camps, which many have been bombed. People have been forced to evacuate at least 8 or 10 times already in the last year and a half. So people are living in tents on streets. For example, we did a food campaign during the month of Ramadan, and the last batch of distribution that we managed to do was of people in Gaza City who had been displaced from other parts of Gaza, who are sheltering in tents literally in tents on the street. That's how desperate the situation is. Doctors and medics have warned of how the situation has deteriorated for people who require treatment within Gaza. The hospitals are semi-functional. We saw the bombing of the Ahli hospital recently, which was the last fully functional hospital in Gaza. So those that are functional are semi-functional. They're having to reuse medical equipment, which is single-use medical equipment. There's no medical aid allowed in as well. So the call from the Egypt Action Coalition here is just exactly that. It's a call to the Egyptian authorities to open Rafah crossing and allow unhindered aid to enter into Gaza, and at the same time, for those Gazans who require emergency medical treatment, which cannot be done in Gaza, to allow them to evacuate. It's just those two specific conditions that the coalition has put together to demand of the Egyptian embassy here in South Africa and transmit that message through to the Egyptian authorities in Egypt.
I want to touch on that specific point, particularly. Someone may ask, why target Egypt? How would you respond to those who believe the pressure should be placed solely on Israel?
Well, Egypt specifically here, because that's the immediate border crossing with Rafah, with Gaza. If there was another country that had a border which allowed aid, which was the singular focus of aid going in, then that country would have been under focus as well. But as it stands, politically, geographically, Egypt is the lifeline. The Rafah crossing with Egypt is the lifeline for aid entering into Gaza and for Palestinians who need to evacuate for medical reasons. So that's purely the political reason. Appealing to Israel, well, that's an appeal falling on deaf ears, isn't it? It's banging your head against the wall, because Israel is committing a genocide. They flouted every single humanitarian law possible. They've lied in the public domain. Their spokespeople continuously lied to the world media, to their faces, and the world media is complicit in this. Western governments are complicit in providing aid and cover for Israel to be able to carry out this genocide. The US recently sent 6 loads of weapons. This was last week. 6 loads of new weaponry for Israel to continue its murder and massacre of the people of Gaza. They're being aided by companies like the UK, other European countries as well. And the massive complicity is from the neighboring regimes as well, those who neighbor Palestine. So immediately it's Egypt, because they share a border. But then you've got other regimes as well in the region who've kept silent, and some who are directly assisting the Israeli regime in carrying out this genocide. So all of them have a role and a responsibility. The media has been horrendously complicit in providing cover, the mainstream media, in providing cover for Israel's repeated war crimes of ethnic cleansing, of genocide, of collective punishment, and all these need to be brought to account. We as South Africans, Egypt stood with South Africa during our days of apartheid. Egypt stood with South Africa. Egypt is a member of the African Union. Egypt is bound by the Geneva Conventions. Egypt is bound by the Genocide Convention, as well as other international humanitarian laws. So the call is on Egypt to exercise its sovereignty to be able to allow unhindered access to aid for the Palestinian people, and for Egypt not to continue to be bullied by the United States, by Israel via the United States, into submitting itself, as an obedient servant of the West in subjugating the Palestinian people. This is a call to Egypt to regain its sovereignty as well.
No, definitely, and I think that's very, very important to highlight. There's a memorandum that has been drafted that is going to be presented to the Egyptian embassy here in South Africa. Are there any specific timelines or expectations that are outlined in that memorandum? If you can just give us a bit more insight on it and what it entails.
Sure. So there are a few points, some of which I've touched on. I'll repeat those as well. We're asking Egypt to shift from just rhetoric, verbal rhetoric, and actual principled defense of the Palestinian people. We're demanding that Egypt exercise their sovereignty over the Rafah crossing by immediately opening it unconditionally for aid to be allowed into Gaza, into the various areas of Gaza that are needed. All the aid that's piled up at the border from international aid organizations. We also making a demand to Egypt to stop profiting from the genocide. We know Palestinians needing to leave Gaza over the last year and a half have had to pay $5,000 per adult and $2,500 per child to a company whose leader, whose owner rather, is linked to the regime, to the Sisi regime in Egypt. And they've profited off the genocide, literally. Trucks are having to pay, aid agencies are having to pay various amounts to be able to get their trucks in over the last year and a half. So we're asking them to stop profiting off the literal genocide that's taking place. We're asking Egypt to actively support any solidarity missions going into Gaza, human rights observers, media workers, aid delegations, international politicians who wish to visit Gaza to be able to see for themselves what's taking place. So that's another call. And we're asking, lastly, Egypt to respect the rights of its people, to be able to protest and to be able to support the rights of the Palestinian people. We know protests by this regime are suppressed unless they put up for political gain, like when President Macron of France visited Egypt recently. There was a staged protest, to show and to garner support for their political games. But when the Egyptian people want to exercise their free will, they are suppressed and they're not allowed to do this. So Egypt needs to pull back and Egypt needs to gain back its sovereignty. We know Egypt is the second largest recipient of aid after Israel from the US. And it's time that Egypt recognized its proud history and its proud legacy in not just the region, but in humanity. And they take that back and they make a principled stance for the people of Palestine.
Oh, sorry. Khalid, before I let you go, there's a protest that it is planned for the 28th of April. If you can give our listeners and viewers, a bit more details on when and where will that be? What are you guys hoping to achieve? Who can get involved? And just all the details around it.
Sure. So there's a protest at the Egyptian embassy planned for Monday, 28th of April. It starts at 1:30. This is in Pretoria. We're urging everybody to come out, irrespective of religious affiliation, racial affiliation, ethnicity. We've got broad support from various communities. There's a multitude of organizations that are linked to the Egypt Action Coalition. We are requesting on South Africans to come out in their numbers to demonstrate their support, our collective support for the people of Palestine, and to let Egypt, the Egyptian government, know that the people of South Africa are not happy about what is taking place and that we have these demands for the Egyptian government. I must at the same time make a distinction between the will of the Egyptian people and the directives of the Egyptian regime. These are two completely different views and understandings, and we do not lump the entire Egyptian population with the decisions of the government, many of which go against the will of the Egyptian people. So this is a request to everybody to come out on Monday. It's a public holiday next Monday. Please avail yourselves. Come out in your numbers. Come out with your banners and your placards and your flags. There will be media covering this. There will be international media covering this as well. We are calling on everybody to come and support this and lend your voice to the people of Palestine by pressurizing Egypt to open the Rafah crossing, which is an emergency.
Well, they have it. We're going to leave it there. Khalid, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure. And Salam Media will definitely be there. Hope the masses will come out. As you mentioned, it's a public holiday, so there are no excuses. Urging everyone to come out and support this very, very important cause. Jazakallah so much for chatting to us. And hope to see you again.
It's a pleasure. Assalamu alaikum.
There you go, Khalid Vawda from Social Intifada. I think, yeah, very, very important, to make sure that you're part of this. As you heard there from Khalid, the Rafah crossing is literally the main artery, that connects Gaza to the rest of the world. And I think, with that being cut off, with that being closed, I think it clearly shows that now hunger is being used as a form of violence. Israel is essentially utilizing, hunger and starvation as one of their weapons, in their quest to wipe out the people of Gaza, in their quest to continue to push them out of Gaza. And yeah, I think it's important to hold the Egyptian authorities to account. It's important that we hold them to order. They are bounded by the Geneva Conventions, as you heard there from Khalid, and they should act. Instead of being a proxy for the West, they should act. They have a responsibility, and at this point, they are the closest ones to the people of Gaza. And with that lifeline being closed, you can only imagine the devastation. The messages that we get from our colleagues in Gaza, especially the journalists, because they are the primary contacts that we have here on Salam Media, the people that we talk to on a daily basis. The stories are really harrowing. It's not looking great for the people of Gaza. There's no food, there's no medication, there's no water coming in. There's just nothing. They're just surviving on pure will. And all of this is happening while they have to duck and dive airstrikes, from this regime essentially. So yeah, it's very, very important that the Rafah crossing is opened, because it's literally the lifeline, the only lifeline that Gaza has to the rest of the world, and Egypt is responsible for it. And one would expect that it shouldn't be even a question that it remains opened, because we know the stance of the people of Egypt. Well, their government, you can say, they're blowing hot and cold. They're probably using the struggle of the Palestinian people for political gain. But generally, the Egyptian population, as they were during apartheid here in South Africa, have been quite vocal about the struggle of people of Palestine, and making sure that their voices are heard and they're amplified, because they're the closest. They probably hear and see way more than the rest of the world does. So yeah, a very, very important protest. I think you can follow Social Intifada on their various social media pages to get more details on that protest on the 28th of this month, which is next week. It's a public holiday. So yeah, there's no excuses. Come out to the Egyptian embassy out in Pretoria, and make sure that your voice is heard. We have a comment from Laymun Labrador. And then what does it say? It's like, good morning and assalamu alaikum, Salailo and Khalid. Condolences to the Bergoglio family and to the whole Roman Catholic Church worldwide on the death of the late Pope Francis of the Vatican, the same Pope who recognized Palestine as an independent and sovereign state in 2015. And yes, yeah, I mentioned that in the opening of the show, that Pope Francis was a leader when it comes to advocating for the rights of people of Palestine. One thing that stood out for me was the fact that he would actually make a call. I think it's weekly, where he would call the only Catholic church in Palestine, and he would check on them. He would check on the people that are sheltering there. He would check on just the state of the people there, if they're being taken care of. And yeah, he was really an important voice that has been lost. Someone that was very unequivocal when it comes to the struggle of the people of Palestine, and not just the people of Palestine. He was vocal about Africa too. The DRC and what's happening in that part of the world. And he was not scared to say that it's Western powers that have the world as it is today. He was a really important role, an important figure, and a loud, important, influential voice in a place that desperately in need of hope. I think condolences there to the Catholic Church and to his family. I think we'll remember Pope Francis very, very fondly. He unfortunately passed on Easter Monday yesterday. And yeah, in the last 18 months of his life, he called the only Catholic church in Gaza regularly without fail, checking on the people there, just hearing firsthand the atrocities that they are being subjected to by the Israeli apartheid genocidal regime, and how many of influential, powerful figures, particularly in the Western world, can you say have done something as close as resembling what the Pope did in his last days. He was an old man. He was not in the best state health wise, but from reports and what we're gathering is he made it a point that every day or every second day he would call the Catholic Church in Gaza, because we must not forget, it's not only Muslims, as some people would like to think. It's not only Muslims who are being subjected to this genocide in Palestine. You have Christians, you have Catholics of Palestinian heritage, Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Catholics who are also being subjected to this regime, who are victims of this genocide. And those people like Pope Francis who made sure that it is recognized and it is known that this is not a religious war, as some people like to think. This is a targeting of a people. This is an effort to wipe them out from the face of the earth, to take over their lands and to make sure that, they're pushed out. And yeah, I think very, very big loss. And I hope that, he'll be remembered fondly the world over. And he'll be one of, the popes that were woke, if I can put it that way, for a Catholic priest. If you can look at how he handles some of the most pressing issues of our time, whether it was climate change or it was world politics and just the dynamics of the 21st century, he was very, very forthcoming and very, again, woke in his thinking and his approach. And yeah, a very, very big loss. And yeah, we offer our condolences to the whole Roman Catholic Church worldwide, and to his family. News and Views is going to continue after this short break. I hope you stay with us. The time is 20 minutes past 9, and we'll come back after the short break.